Welcome back to Narrations. This is a story about a life so carefully protected that it becomes a prison. About a man raised inside comfort, routine, and smiling faces, and the quiet terror of realizing that safety can be the most effective form of control. It's about what happens when instinct begins to rebel against design, and a person starts to sense that the world around him exists for him, but never with him. This is the story of the Truman Show. Truman Burbank wakes up every morning at precisely the same time. The alarm rings. The sun rises. The same light spills through the same window, landing on the same wall, warming the same side of his face. Truman smiles, not because he's especially happy, but because smiling has always felt like the correct response to waking up alive. He talks to himself as he brushes his teeth, rehearsing jokes, narrating thoughts aloud. He doesn't know why he does this. He's always done it. It feels comforting, like filling silence before it has a chance to become lonely. Outside, Sea Haven waits for him. Sea Haven is perfect in a way that feels intentional. The streets are clean. The lawns are trimmed to identical lengths. Neighbors greet one another with enthusiasm that never seems to waver. Truman's best friend, Marlin, appears exactly when needed, beer already in hand, ready to talk Truman down from anxiety he doesn't yet understand. Truman's life looks safe. And safety has always been his reward for obedience. As a child, Truman learned early that fear leads to confinement, and calm leads to approval. When his father drowned at sea, a traumatic, carefully staged event, Truman's world shrank. Water became something to avoid. Travel became dangerous. Curiosity became risky. Without ever being told directly, Truman learned the rules. Stay here. Stay safe. Stay smiling. As an adult, Truman sells insurance. A profession built entirely around the management of fear. He calculates risk for a living while never realizing his own life has been reduced to one controlled variable after another. He talks about vacations he will never take. Dreams he never quite commits to. And yet, something has begun to itch beneath the surface. It starts with small things. A light falls from the sky. It crashes onto the pavement directly in front of Truman's car, heavy, real, impossible. For a moment, Truman freezes. The world hesitates with him. Then an explanation arrives quickly, smoothly, rehearsed. Part of a plane. Everyone laughs. But Truman doesn't. Because planes don't shed lights over suburban streets. Because explanations that arrive too fast rarely feel true. Because something inside him recognizes the sound of a lie even when he can't articulate it. From that moment on, Sea Haven begins to feel slightly out of rhythm. The radio glitches one morning and starts narrating Truman's movements as he drives. Every turn, every stoplight, every hesitation described in detail. Truman looks around, heart pounding, waiting for someone else to notice. No one does. The broadcast cuts out. The moment disappears. Life resumes. But Truman doesn't forget. He begins noticing repetition. The same man jogs past at the same second every morning. The same woman drops the same papers at the same corner. Traffic loops endlessly when Truman tries to take an unfamiliar route. When he stops suddenly, the world stumbles. Truman's wife, Meryl, becomes harder to ignore. She loves him enthusiastically but shallowly, as if performing affection rather than feeling it. When Truman asks real questions, about leaving Sea Haven, about having children, about why everything feels arranged, she doesn't respond with curiosity. She responds with reassurance. Reassurance without listening. Sometimes, in the middle of emotional conversations, she breaks into oddly specific product endorsements, smiling unnaturally, as if speaking to someone Truman can't see. It unsettles him in ways he doesn't know how to explain. Truman laughs it off. Because laughing keeps things comfortable. But memories return uninvited. Sylvia. A woman he met years ago, briefly but intensely. Someone who looked at him not as a role to be played, but as a person to be warned. She told him his life wasn't real. That everyone was watching. That Sea Haven was a lie. She was dragged away mid-sentence. Truman was told she was disturbed. But her eyes, urgent, terrified, sincere, never left him. As Truman's unease grows, Sea Haven reacts. The town doesn't argue with him. It obstructs him. When he tries to leave town, traffic jams materialize instantly. When he attempts to board a bus, the driver panics inexplicably. When he gets too close to water, reminders of his childhood trauma surface, images, warnings, gentle reinforcements of fear. The world does not confront Truman. It corrals him. Above it all, Christoph watches. From a control room in the artificial sky, Christoph sees Truman not as a man, but as a masterpiece. A perfectly curated human life, untouched by randomness, pain edited into manageable portions, danger removed entirely. Christoph believes he loves Truman. He believes the world he built is kinder than the real one. He believes giving Truman safety is an act of mercy. And he believes, sincerely, that Truman belongs where he is. As Truman begins testing the edges of his world, Christoph tightens control. The audience leans forward. Ratings spike. Truman's discomfort becomes entertainment. But Truman doesn't know about cameras or viewers. He only knows this: the world is pushing back. And for the first time in his life, he pushes too. He starts acting unpredictably. Changing routines. Saying the wrong things on purpose. Watching people's reactions closely. Noticing how quickly comfort turns into resistance when he threatens the script. Fear begins to lose its grip. Curiosity replaces it. And curiosity is something Sea Haven was never designed to survive. Truman's suspicions no longer feel like passing thoughts. They feel like gravity. Once he stops dismissing them, the weight of everything presses in at once. Every smile feels measured. Every conversation feels rehearsed. Even silence feels intentional, as if the world is holding its breath, waiting for him to return to the version of himself it understands. But Truman doesn't. He begins experimenting. Not dramatically at first, but playfully, as if testing the edges of a dream. He stops mid-sentence, and watches faces freeze for a fraction of a second too long. He turns abruptly, catching people scrambling to adjust. He stays home unexpectedly, forcing the town into awkward stillness. The reactions are subtle. Too subtle. That's what convinces him. The world isn't responding to him. It's adjusting around him. His closest friend, Marlin, senses the danger. When Truman grows anxious, Marlin appears exactly when needed, beer in hand, voice steady, reassuring. He speaks of loyalty. Of childhood memories. Of how Sea Haven is safe, dependable, real. But Truman watches Marlin's eyes now. He sees the fear there. Not fear for Truman, fear of losing control of the moment. When Marlin swears on their friendship that everything is real, Truman almost believes him. Almost. Then a hidden earpiece slips into view for half a second before it's tucked away again. That second is enough. The realization is not explosive. It's devastating. Truman doesn't scream. He doesn't collapse. He feels something far worse. The grief of understanding that every relationship he has ever known was conditional. That love was scripted. That intimacy was rented. He has never been alone. And he has never been known. Above him, Christoph watches with mounting concern. He speaks of Truman with reverence, describing him as innocent, pure, uncorrupted by the chaos of the real world. Christoph insists that Truman is happy, that Sea Haven has given him a life free of pain. What Christoph doesn't acknowledge is that he also removed choice. And without choice, happiness is just obedience with good lighting. Truman decides to leave. Not impulsively, deliberately. He packs a bag quietly, disguising his intent beneath routine. He pretends to sleep, waits for the world to relax its guard, then slips away at dawn. For a moment, Sea Haven doesn't react fast enough. For the first time in his life, Truman outruns the design. By the time the town mobilizes, Truman is already on the water. The ocean. The one place Sea Haven trained him to fear. Boats are stopped. Bridges are blocked. Storm warnings appear out of nowhere. The sky darkens unnaturally fast as Kristoff escalates control, determined to force Truman back into safety, even if it means terror. Waves rise violently. Thunder cracks. Rain lashes down with punishing intensity. Truman's small boat is tossed like a toy, each wave threatening to end everything. Kristoff speaks to him through the storm, his voice filling the sky like a god addressing creation. He tells Truman there is no more truth out there than in here. That the world beyond Sea Haven is cruel, dangerous, indifferent. That he created Sea Haven to protect him. To love him. And Truman listens. For a moment, fear nearly wins. Then Truman laughs. Not hysterically. Not bitterly. Freely. Because he understands something now that Kristoff never did. Pain is not the opposite of happiness. Control is. Truman stands on the boat as waves crash around him, shouting not defiance, but clarity. He would rather face uncertainty than live inside comfort built on lies. He would rather risk suffering than accept safety that requires surrendering himself. The storm intensifies, until suddenly, brutally, it stops. The boat collides with something solid. A wall. Truman stares at it, stunned. The horizon, the infinite horizon he's never been allowed to reach, ends in painted sky. The illusion finally reveals itself, not through malfunction or error, but through certainty. This world has an edge. Truman climbs out of the boat, touching the wall gently, as if afraid it might disappear. He follows it until he finds a staircase leading upward, not hidden, not locked, but waiting. At the top is a door. Kristoff speaks to him one last time, not as a god now, but as a man afraid of being abandoned. He tells Truman he knows him better than anyone. That without the show, Truman will be alone. Unscripted. Unprotected. Truman listens. And then he smiles, the same warm, familiar smile Sea Haven trained into him. Only this time, it belongs entirely to him. In case I don't see ya, he says softly. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And Truman steps through the door. The cameras lose him. The world goes quiet. For the first time in his life, Truman Burbank is unseen. And truly alive. The Truman Show is a story about awakening, about the courage it takes to walk away from comfort when comfort demands obedience. It reminds us that freedom isn't found in perfect systems or curated lives, but in uncertainty, choice, and the willingness to step into a world that does not promise happiness, only honesty. If you enjoyed listening to this story, please like the video, share it with someone who loves movies like this, and subscribe for more narrations.